Voters demand for change. Australian voters becoming fed up with major parties fueled by major concerns and want changes. The latest research from Redbridge Group has uncovered troubling trends in how Australian and American voters are responding to their country's established political parties. A growing sense of disillusionment is emerging, fueled by concerns over the cost of living, the housing crisis, and issues with the healthcare system. As a result, more and more people are seeking alternative, disruptive solutions rather than remaining loyal to the status quo. According to Redbridge Group Director Simon Welsh, there is a clear appetite among voters for a political figure who will shake up the existing order, similar to the rise of Donald Trump in the United States. However, Welsh notes that the Australian context is somewhat different. While voters may crave disruption, they tend to favour a more pragmatic approach that doesn't simply involve upending the system for the sake of it. Australians tend to be very pragmatic about their disruption, Welsh explains. The idea of a Trump-like figure that's just going to come in and wreck things and upturn the status quo actually doesn't excite Australian voters. Instead, the public is looking for leadership that can offer practical solutions to the challenges they face, without causing undue anxiety or uncertainty. This nuanced approach to disruption is reflected in the public's perception of the Greens Party. While many voters are drawn to the party's progressive policies, they are wary of its reputation as an obstructionist activist entity. What they want, Welsh suggests, is a more sensible, pragmatic approach to implementing change, one that addresses their concerns without triggering a backlash. The failure of the Greens in the recent Queensland election underscores this sentiment. Voters may have been drawn to the party's platform, but they ultimately rejected it due to a perception that it was too ideologically driven and lacked the necessary pragmatism to enact meaningful change. The disillusionment with the major parties is also evident in the public's shifting attitudes towards political leadership. Voters initially embraced the change represented by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, seeing him as a more approachable and cuddly alternative to his predecessor, Scott Morrison. However, there are now signs that Albanese may be perceived as too soft, with some voters yearning for a stronger, more decisive leader. While they wanted change from the Morrison government, there's a sense that the Albanese government is just running on business as usual, Welsh notes. Incumbent governments that are just sort of running on "will keep things turning over" kind of manner are getting pounded in the polls and at the ballot box. This dynamic speaks to a broader frustration with the political establishment, which is perceived as out of touch with the lived experiences of everyday Australians. The cost of living crisis, the housing affordability issue, and the ongoing challenges within the healthcare system have all contributed to a sense that the major parties are failing to address the real concerns of the electorate. Welsh suggests that the window of opportunity for the Albanese government to rectify this situation may be closing quickly. With the next election on the horizon, the public's cynicism towards the political establishment has likely become baked in, making it increasingly difficult for the government to regain the trust and confidence of disillusioned voters. If you start to do disruptive, really good stuff now, people will say, "Well, why didn't you do that a year ago?" Welsh argues. The cynicism starts to become baked in, and that becomes really hard to punch through. No amount of campaign or communications or marketing will sort of punch through that cynicism. This stark assessment underscores the challenges facing not only the Albanese government but the broader political landscape in Australia. Voters are clearly hungry for change, but they are increasingly skeptical of the ability of the major parties to deliver it. The rise of alternative, disruptive voices, whether from the fringes of the political spectrum or from within the established parties themselves, is a testament to this growing disillusionment. As the next election looms, the major parties will need to grapple with this fundamental shift in the political landscape. Appealing to the pragmatic, problem-solving instincts of Australian voters will be crucial, as will a willingness to embrace bold, innovative solutions that address the pressing issues facing the country. Failure to do so could result in a political landscape that is increasingly fragmented and unpredictable, with the potential for disruptive, populist figures to gain traction and upend the traditional power structures. For the major parties, the path forward may require a fundamental rethinking of their strategies and a renewed commitment to responsive, effective governance, or risk being swept aside by a tide of voter discontent.